Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Matterhorn and the greatest Rotary Club on the face of the planet, right here in Elkhart, Indiana. It's so glad to be back here. It's so glad to see so many faces, whole faces, excluding a few of you, which I was fine with. But we'll just leave that. It's so great to see everyone. I would like to just thank so many of you for being here. Was it last week? It was a tremendous. Who was there last week? Was that your first time seeing Jack Smith's collection? Excellent. It was great. I loved it. And I'm even more inspired by the fact that there are so many of you that were there that are here today. I was starting to think we were going to need to bring a collection of something to every meeting that we have. So I asked my son if I could bring his car collection. He was very possessive and he said no. But I could have walked it in a suitcase. Howard Edwards, would you come up and give our invocation, pledge, and four-way test, please?
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity for us as Rotarians to come together. We ask you to guide our meeting, guide our speakers, and we ask you to bless all those college graduates, our children who are graduating from high school, and even our kindergartners who are moving on to first grade. Give us the blessing we ask in your name. Amen. Our pledge. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty. Test. It is the truth. It is fair to all concerned. Will it feel good to be a better place? Will it be beneficial?
Thank you, Howard. Thanks for starting that quickly before I got completely in front of the four-way test as I was off script and come walking up here. Susan, would you like to come and welcome our guest, please?
The Yoder, is that what else?
For those of you who are not at home, but this is a good practice apparently. It's really nice to have you here, Ray. All right, announcements. If you have announcements, would you please come up and you can make those. And otherwise, I'd also like to share that I know Bill always mentions the upcoming speakers. And before Howard gets up here, I just wanted to share with you my screen. And we're going to do something fancy here. Maybe. We're not going to do this. Let's try something else. Andy, I'm just trying to share the browser. Screen. Share. Or not. Okay. So in a pinch, everyone could take out their phones and they could go to elkhartrotary.org, and that is where you will find our upcoming speakers. And on the home page, on the left-hand side, if you're looking on a desktop computer, you can see the upcoming speakers. And so next Monday, of course, Memorial Day, it's the 5th, it's also the 5th Monday in May, we will not be meeting. So no meeting next Monday. And then on June 7th, we will actually meet at Wellfield Botanic Gardens, where we will welcome Sean McCrindle, the new CEO at Basher. And on June 14th, we'll have Ben Decker and Kurt Janowski, who will be talking about the upcoming return of the Elkhart Jazz Festival, which is really exciting. The 21st of June, we'll welcome Kevin Millick, the Aquatics Director at Elkhart Health and Aquatics. And on the 28th of June, we're going to have a special program. In addition to having Bill give a little farewell, and we're going to thank Bill for what he's done, we're also going to have a few moments talking about some of the programs that we have here in our program at Elkhart Rotary, and also talk about our committees. So I hope everybody can make it that day to thank Bill, and we will go from there. Howard, do you have a announcement?
Announcement. In 2 weeks, we'll be doing another Paul Harris recognition, and we hopefully, with our 21 Rotarians whose names we have, we hope that some of them will be in attendance. And if anyone wants an update on where they stand point wise, send me an email and we'll get back with you and give you all the information so that you can receive your first or your next Paul Harris. Thank you.
And Mike Crable. I'm going to make Andy co-host of this meeting. There you go.
Okay. I want to thank everyone for your responses to our workday, June 5th at Boot Lake Nature Preserve. We have lots of people who enjoy pulling weeds. And we have someone, Don Stoller, who has expertise in invasive species down in Florida. So if he finds any of those up here, he is going to jump right on. So I wanted to thank everyone. If you have not signed up, there are still spots available. You just have to respond to the email that you received about a week and a half ago, and we'll get you signed up because we got plenty of weeds out there. And the morning division replaced the decking on Boot Lake about 3 years ago, and the materials that the county provided, the squirrels just loved it. And so we're replacing the railing again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And just to clarify, Mike, who are we reaching out to reach out to you for that day? So we can send that to Mike Crable. What if on the very last day, someone just has that morning open, or they wake up feeling refreshed on Saturday morning, June 5th, and want to come pull some mustard? Could they just show up? That's right. That's right. So just know garlic mustard, very nice. Good mustard greens. You can make some good greens out of that. So thank you, Mike. So everyone reach out to Mike. Shannon White.
One day last week, I talked with Bob Peters on my phone. You'll remember, some of you will, maybe all of you, that Bob several months ago had stroke. I think he's finished with his therapy. He appreciated all. He wished all of us a blessed day. He can't get out much. He wants to return to Rotary, but he said it'll be quite some time before he can get back. He does not leave the house very much. He has 2 sons nearby that do help him by transportation. So blessings to all of us from Bob Peters. And now if Bill Burton is watching, Bill, this is a comeback for what you did to a previous president of this club. I know that's why you're here. We're going to sing happy birthday to Bill Burton. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks, Shannon. And just by the way, for posterity, this is recorded, so we will have that. I think that sounded pretty good. What do you think, Tom?
Good
Good morning, everybody. Rotary blue shirts are back. So we had these in 2019. We were going to crank it up again last year, but you know what happened last year. So you get your Rotary blue shirt. They're $20. I really can't guarantee you'll look as good in them as I do, but it's only a $20 bet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass around this blue sheet, and you can sign up if you'd like one of these. I'll be taking orders for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll place it. Okay, $20. Sign up if you'd like it.
Thank you, Tom. And I also, I wanted to just make a quick announcement, and maybe everyone in their own way, but I'm assuming many of you heard that former Mayor Dave Miller passed away, and his family is in our thoughts, and I know that you'll all have your own way of expressing that to their families. So it's I know I really only got to know Dave in the last couple of years as he was a mayoral candidate, but I am also very aware that he was very instrumental in the formation and approval of Wellfield Botanic Gardens. And I see Eric Amp nodding his head, and Chuck Grodnick, some of the early founders of that. And so thoughts are with their family, certainly. Okay. Again, thanks for those announcements. And I would like to now call up a distinguished sergeant to help extract some funds out of folks. But in the absence of that, Dave Neeser, come on up, man. I'm guessing that'll cost me, by the way.
Yeah, that's $2.87 right now.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dave Neeser, and I'm your sergeant today. I hope you enjoy your service. Having said that, I thought I'd share a few things and let you know that how happy I am to see y'all be here. What hopefully will be the beginning of the end of COVID and all the issues that we've had to deal with. So a new topic has come up that we have to deal with personally at our house. This is in honor of myself, Tom MacArthur, Mike, where's Mike Frable back there? A new topic that we've had to deal with quite a bit. Hopefully you can see this on the screen and at home. This is my son at a pool party, and this is called COVID care. It's just an already. That'll be $1 for my counselor. Thank you. Well, I cut my 4 or 5 on each side, and then it stops. And you can give me $2. Thank you. All right, just a couple things to share. Good fun facts from a book my wife showed me this weekend. Any guesses how many bricks are in the Empire State Building? Somebody said a lot. This will cost you all $1 to learn this. 10 million bricks. Empire State Building. Another fun fact. And guys, this is not something you buy your wife for wedding anniversary or Valentine's Day. I'll show this to you again. Currently, you can make peanut butter. So if you get a divorce or having a room for your wife with peanut butter, it's not my fault. That's another $1 for that great factoid. And then most interestingly, and sometimes you hear about these scientific studies that have debatable scientific value, and you wonder what these guys say. Okay? For example, who funded and what do you put on your resume? You're one of the people involved in studying that cockroaches can survive for up to 15 minutes. Anybody scientific value in that? No? That's $1 for that. Last but not least, Eric, if you could come up for just a moment. I have done the compliment your fellow Rotarian. This is permanent. So, Eric, do you have something on the spot you can say nice about theirs? In the microphone. Cost you $1 too.
Aaron Sorg is a fantastic.
He's back.
Oh, he's back there.
Back there.
Darren, great guy. It looks great in that shirt with a little. Is that a pin on there? I think
it's a medium.
There you go. I've heard great things about Darren around town. Yes, that's right. Tom Pletcher was telling me about how great Darren's diamonds are, that you can actually get real diamonds.
They're not made up.
They're not made out of peanut butter. But yeah, great things about Darren. How are you, Darren? Darren's doing great today. Love to hear it.
Thank you. That's a lot for everyone as well. And that concludes my announcements.
All right. Did not know this is going to be the Eric Garten President-elect show today. Everybody, I hope Bill's having a great vacation, great birthday. I know he's out of town enjoying some big trees out there. Thanks, Dave, for that fundraising. We appreciate that. And just so everybody knows, and just a reminder that all of those fines go to support all of our local not-for-profits in the area. So extending the good work that we want to do here at Rotary, making sure that those organizations have some of the funding they need for some of these really great projects. So thank you all for giving. Give till it hurts, and you can always do that online as well. John Hill and Tina Weldy and Anthony Hunt, you can always do that with a click of a button on our website as well. All right, it's time for a speaker today, and I'm not going to do anything fancy other than try to share up this screen. And then I'm secretly looking in the background behind Andy McCaskey. Over his shoulder, he's given me like a prompter to see what everyone else sees, which you can all see right here. And I think I can minimize this as well on our screen. Okay, I think everyone at home or here, Aaron, is seeing a slide that says origami in the garden. Is that correct? Love it. This is good. See, this is like the home play at home game, or play right here on your phone game. So it is my pleasure to be here to talk about origami in the garden too. This has been about 3 years, actually 4 years in the making. We had reached out to the exhibit owners and creators, Box Studio, Jennifer and Kevin Box, several years ago with interest after talking with our Arts and Exhibitions Committee and the board about trying to do something really cool to bring here to Wellfield that could really be a great experience for the community, something that no one had ever seen before, and try to elevate Wellfield's exposure in the community with this as well. So this is something we want to continue to do. And some of you may remember a few years ago, we worked with John Mishler. He's a sculptor down in Goshen. Many of you know him, and he curated a small show for us that was fantastic. And this is sort of the next evolution in that. So this is a traveling exhibit. So this will be on through October 17th. Again, I want to thank Candy and Ray, and if you would please continue to take our thanks back to the foundation for being the presenting sponsor. We're really happy to have you as a partner in this at Wellfield. I'm not going to read all of this, but I just want you to know that Jennifer and Kevin Box have been fantastic to work with over these last couple of years. Again, we We were able to secure the exhibit in 2018. We secured it. We continued to do some fundraising in 2019. And then in 2020, something happened. And I think all of us are having COVID brain cloud. But we were able to push the exhibit back until this year, which was really fantastic. So that took all of the different exhibits, and the boxes actually have several of these that go out to different botanic gardens at any one given time. All of them agreed to move their exhibits back a year, which was so generous of them to do that, and all of the other gardens and the boxes to coordinate this. So these are our primary artists. Kevin and Jennifer actually started the exhibit back in 2013. They are from the Santa Fe area, and they started their first one at the Santa Fe Botanical Garden in 2014. These are some collaborators. These are really cool, and I warn you against going to YouTube and Googling or just starting to look at videos of Robert J. Lang, because Robert J. Lang is he's a physicist and an engineer. He works for NASA, and he did a TED Talk that has been viewed over 2 million times about the importance and how he's applied origami to the science that he does. So a couple of examples. He is responsible for helping put satellites into space. And if you've ever watched a satellite go into space, oftentimes if they have solar arrays, they will open up, and guess what? As they're opening and unfolding, they are actually employing folding paper, which is what origami is. So you have these same principles. And he's actually patented a couple of airbags for cars, so safety restraints that, guess what? They're also, it's all about folding. And so in a way, and we like to say this, and we don't say it casually, but we like people to get, this is meant to be sort of provocative, but origami saves lives. And so if you think about the applications of origami, ancient art technique, into these real world situations, you can put satellites into space and they can save lives in an automobile accident. So really great videos out there if you Google or go to YouTube and look for Robert J. Lang. TJ Fu graduated from Maryland Institute College of Arts. He's actually one of the most amazing Chinese origami masters. And TJ collaborated with Kevin Box on a couple of these, and I'll tell you how these all fit together in just a second. Michael G. LaFosse, he's also another master paper origami artist. He makes most of his paper, which is an art form in itself. Beth Johnson, she has one piece that is inspired in our show, and it's the acorn. And she's actually also from, who's the Michigan folks in here? I'm spacing where University of Michigan is. Ann Arbor. Beth Johnson, thank you all very much. In Chorus is from Ann Arbor, Michigan. We may try to have her come down during the exhibit to do a program for us. And Tim Armijo, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years after the exhibit was created, he inspired our smallest piece, which I will share with you later in the show. So the way that these artists work with Kevin and Jennifer Box is they are truly the origami artists who create the paper models that are then cast in museum quality metals. So things like bronze, aluminum, stainless steel, all depending on the application in the actual physical exhibit, they make a determination on which of those metals are used. But they actually use, and I know there's a few of you who are knowledgeable about art, may be familiar with lost wax casting. That's exactly the method that they employ to create these sculptures, with the exception of a couple that are actually fabricated. So a couple in our show are not cast, but fabricated, and I will share with you which ones those are. So this is a simple list of all of those that are in our show. It's comprised of 21 sculptures located in 16 different locations around the garden and also inside our visitors cottage. So as a whole, talking about how exhibits are packaged at Wellfield, this is just a simple example of the map showing the locations where all of these are. And so this is available online. And really, we also have this that people can either take a picture of at the visitor's cottage. They can also scan this QR code that's in the lower left-hand corner here, and they can get directed to our website where they can find out a lot more information. So we want to make this a very multi-dimensional experience for guests, because we know, one, not everyone will be able to come out and experience all of these. We also know that people will come and experience them, want to go home and find out information that they may have forgotten from the interpretive signs. They can find all of that on our website. So if they know where the locations are, and also this is a really important piece of this, it's an audio tour. So we have a very simple audio tour that is provided by Box Studios for this exhibit. And you can dial this single number, this 888-495-7736, and then enter the number. If you're standing at one of the pieces, you can actually see this right in front of you. You'll have the number, like Blooming Stars is number 76, or Botanical Peace is number 7. You can enter that number and you'll hear from the artist voices themselves about the pieces. And it's different information. Some of it's overlapping, but it's largely different information than what you'd see on the interpretive signs. So it adds another level of the interpretive experience for those who would like to spend a little more time. And we're really encouraging folks to take a look at this afterwards. You know, sometimes out in the garden, it's not convenient, you know, to pull up your cell phone, or you maybe don't feel the mood to do that, but you can do that at home or on your way home, as long as you have this number. So looking at the pieces that we have in this exhibit, this is called Inside Out 2. And it's located inside the visitor's cottage. There are actually 4 hanging wall pieces and then 4 different small real scale origami pieces that were folded. So if we look at the screen right here in front of us, you can see this Pegasus that's in a little vitrine box down here. That was actually folded by Robert Lang. It's a highly complex origami piece. And what they've done to make sure that people understand how this exhibit works, and that these are, more importantly, all made from a single uncut square of paper. So this little Pegasus right here, with all those intricate, the wings, the legs, you know, the face and the ears, it's all made from a single uncut square. You'll hear that referred to many times in the exhibit, with rare exception. All of the pieces are done in this single uncut square. So what they've done is they've taken this origami sculpture. This paper that you see hanging on the wall is actually not paper at all. It is aluminum. They unfolded the paper very delicately so that you can see all the creases in the folds. So all of the origami, it leaves those creases, those folds are still evident when you unfold the paper. But you can see how many hundreds of different folds went into making this Pegasus. And then they cast this in lost wax casting process, which is highly complex. It takes a lot of time. And then they have this nice wall hanging. Remember, I'd mentioned there's different materials that they'll use. So they'll use either aluminum or stainless or bronze. This is a great example of the application of needing it to be lightweight because it's hanging on a wall. If it were bronze, you'd need special fasteners and extra reinforced walls, stainless steel as well. So this is actually cast in aluminum, but I love how it really looks like paper. So even in the photo, and if you've seen it in person, a lot of people reach out to touch these, and actually it's encouraged delicately, but you can actually get a sense for how cool these are. So all of that comes from a single uncut square. Same thing with the paper model over here of the standing crane. And then over on this side, this is the paper model for the boat and also for this butterfly. Important to note, especially on this Pegasus right here, this is a 1-to-1 scale. So the paper folded in this little box by Robert Lang, unfolded, is the size of the piece that's hanging on the wall. So it's 1-to-1 just to demonstrate how small these pieces get when you take very large pieces of paper. And there were some funny stories about this in the early goings of this exhibit, how they even tried having pieces of paper that were as big as half this room to try to make the horses, the painted ponies, because they wanted to try to create that authentic lost wax casting process. So they created these giant sheets and literally took multiple people to fold them, even in half. It just wasn't as practical. So they started using computer-aided drafting. Some of you may be familiar with that, of basically creating three-dimensional models that could then be molded into clay, which were then cast into the sculptures that you see in the garden now. So a little visual tour out and around the garden. This is as soon as you step out of the visitor's cottage. This is called crane unfolding. And what we had done to help augment the sponsorship, generous sponsorship from the Community Foundation, was getting individuals, and you may notice a fellow club member, Jim Rickoff, thank you very much, and Janet Evangelin, who sponsored this piece called Crane Unfolding. This was actually the very first origami-inspired sculpture that Kevin Box did. And it has multiple pieces. You can see how the crane is literally in different stages as it rises up. Everyone's familiar with the crane. It's a very common origami, common to see, but not commonly accomplished. I still can't do it without looking at very detailed instructions. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's a really cool piece, and it's sort of the opening of our show because of it being one of Kevin's first. These are the painted ponies that I'd mentioned. These are sort of at the, we call it at the Y right there as you walk out of the cottage. They're the largest pieces that we have in our show, and these were sponsored by a group in memory of Robin Jolgren, a teacher at Beardsley Elementary School, a staff person there who recently passed away. Something to note, a little bit of interesting information. You can see this brand that's on the back of the horse. That is actually the initials of TJ Fu, and Fu in Chinese means teacher. So his signature, his symbol in Chinese is actually teacher, and they combined the two with putting a box around it. So it was Kevin Box and TJ Fu. So that's what you're seeing right there. But these are really popular. They take great photos. Many of you know typical origami is done in white. We've had questions about why these are blue and red, and it was really just a artistic selection to do something a little bit different. But these are really, really cool pieces. These are made of aluminum as well. If they were bronze or stainless steel, they'd be pretty darn heavy. So they are strong enough. They can support a grown person, even the small ones. I don't recommend that. There are no saddles on these, so you want to straddle very carefully. This is Duo in the volunteer guard. Thanks to Tony Warnick and Martha Peterson for their sponsorship of this piece. This is another one that we actually, this is the first time that it's ever been mounted in the water. They've done these shows now for quite a few years, and they've never had them mounted in the water before. But if you'll notice these pieces, and those of you familiar with Wellfield, you've seen these in our volunteer garden. They're these columnar basalt columns. These sort of inspired Kevin when he was visiting in 2019 to install this piece here, just off and out of reach of people in Swan Pond, because it's actually the same material that is made up. And so thanks to Eric Ant for making the platform that we use to put this out in the water. It works out really, really well. I'm really pleased with it. These are actually stainless steel. So again, where you have points that are delicate, I should say, when there's not a lot of metal that's holding something together, that's where they apply stainless steel, because you need that strength. And I didn't know this, but bronze, it's really, really heavy, but it's also really soft. And so there are times where if you were to make this out of bronze, if someone were to grab it, it could actually be broken fairly easy if it has a small contact point, and apparently not the same if you use stainless steel. So that's why they employ stainless steel. Emerging piece, Stu Barr, Paula Barr. Stu, are you here today? Stu, thank you for this. This is in the annual garden. This is actually, it's one of my favorites because it really tells a great story that we're able to tell in the garden when we're working with school groups or just families, talking about the butterfly So at the base of this, there is a leaf, and then on the leaf is a little egg. And then the next stage up is the caterpillar. So talking about that life cycle, after it goes from egg, the caterpillar eats a bunch of leaves. It then pupates and becomes a chrysalis, which is this next stage, and then opens into a beautiful origami butterfly. And I'm also very excited to announce to you that one of our donors has offered to purchase this piece for us at Wellfield. So this will be a permanent piece at Wellfield that we can't tell you right now where it's going to be located, and I can't tell you the donor, but I'm really excited that this piece will stay at Wellfield because we'll be able to continue to tell that story and be able to use it as an interpretive piece. I like it too because it has color. It's just a really intricate piece. This is white bison in the children's garden. By the way, some of you may have noticed too, I'm using some images that were actually early renderings that we didn't have these in place when I took photos, or before we put these in place, we had these renderings that they did for us. And so this is actually not the real sculpture, but it's an image of where it would be. And you can see this one's called duogami. If you've ever done origami, you may have remembered some paper has different colors on each side. This is what happens in this case where you have white on one side and silver on the other side. The way this piece works, you end up having all of the silver at the back end of the bison, with the exception of the horns. So the horns are actually turned around. This is another Robert Lang piece. The degree to which these folks can figure this out, they're way smarter than me. They're just, I don't know how engineers' minds work. I just know they work differently from mine. And an engineer could probably tell you exactly how differently they work. But this has also got a little peace crane on the back of it, so representing some of those bison out on the plains with the little bird on the back. So that's bison, sponsored by Frank and Tanya Lucchese. Who Saw Who? This is a great piece along the adventure path. So again, on that loop around, you can see that there's a raptor up here that's sitting on another piece of columnar basalt. And the raptor is actually looking down at the little mouse. And this is Armijo's mouse. This is the smallest piece in our collection. You remember that I mentioned Tim Armijo. He was the inspiration for this piece, and he had created that little mouse. So this is, I think, a neat placement of this piece, because as guests walk through, they get to look back and forth and think about which of these, they've got to each focus on each other. So the raptor is focused on food, being the mouse. The mouse is focused on getting its own food, so searching around on the ground and also making sure that it does not become food from the raptor. This is a nesting pair in the English cottage garden. It's one of my favorite pieces, which is why my wife and I offered to sponsor this. I love the fact that it was a pair like my wife and I, and that we are always continually nesting, putting down roots in a place. And I just love this. And it was also in honor of Robert and Peggy Wee, who are sponsored this garden and also who have endowed my position. So this was something I wanted to have a personal touch in English cottage garden. Star Unfolding, sponsored by Welch Packaging. This is in the waterfall garden. And I'll be really honest with you, when I first saw this one, and you all think of the same thing, what does it look like? It looks like a box, right? So I thought it might be called Star Unfolding, but I figured I could probably sell this to Scott and Kim as maybe a box that's folding. So that was one they were very happy to sponsor this one in their waterfall garden. Just a really nice piece. This one is a piece that Kevin Box calls a self-portrait. Not in the literal sense, but in the way that he thinks about these bases and these pieces of paper as he's folding them and then creating these works of art. I really like that one. This is Rising Peace out on the island garden. It's very delicate. It's actually a series of cranes that are all mounted on a small stone right out here. It's a really great piece. And I think you can see probably in the background, just the placement of these, how you've also got the boat out here, and you've also got flying piece over here, which we'll talk about in a second. So sponsored by Joel and Amy Doofy. Joel is the chair at Wellfield this year. It's been on the board for several years. We really appreciate that. It's a great location. It's a great spot to sort of look at this both from the West Promenade on the other side and also looking at it from the Island Garden. Got a shot of Kevin Box doing a tour. We had a tour that we offered up for our sponsors just before we opened up to the public. And I just got lucky with this photo, but having him gesturing to Paper Navigator, sponsored by Stephen Schiller Fiddler. This is one of the pieces that is actually fabricated. So this one is not lost wax casting, but is fabricated. And this one is fabricated aluminum. It is floating. And if you've seen this out in the garden, you might have noticed that it does tack around as the wind blows. It's actually really cool. It's just on a small chain anchor, and you can actually see it blowing around in the wind. So I got lucky to get that side profile of it right there. This is Flying Piece, sponsored by Tom and Dana. Thank you so much for this one. It makes a lovely photo right in front of that redbud right there. And I've kept this photo. It just looks fantastic. It also looks really great framed with the Island Garden behind it. This is believed to be the most complex piece of origami ever created. And you might guess, yes, this is Robert Lang. He did this piece, and it's got hundreds of folds, but I want to reiterate again, it was folded from a single uncut square of paper that inspired then this piece. And this one was actually folded to scale and actually cast. So this was a very large piece of paper that was cast. And this one, as you might guess, is also in stainless steel because of this really small placement in the stone. It's actually a really tight spot, and we didn't want anyone to break this one. And so this one is also cast in stainless steel. I really love this one though. From the beak, the bill of this crane all the way down to the feet and all of the wings, all of the wings, this is all folded from a single uncut square of paper. It's really cool. Folding planes, Terry and Mike Crable. Mike, thank you so much for sponsoring this piece. You can see the sequence right here. You can actually see the different folds. They add a fold up into each one of these planes. And this was kind of a neat story, but talking about this with Kevin, he's got meaning to all of these. And each fold, this is come from the interpretive information, each fold symbolizes a choice or action taken to transform an invisible idea into reality. I really got the sense that both Kevin and Jennifer, in addition to being artists, they're very much entrepreneurial. I think it fits really well in Elkhart, but they talked about the opportunities and the choices that you make. And this one really kind of stood out to me. It takes 7 folds to make a piece of paper fly. But the first step is setting a goal and then taking it step by step to the finish. So these are the types of things that you see. It's the stories that you can find on the interpretive information that make these really special. This is seed sower and seed. So this is another one of the renderings that they've done for us early on. This is not an actual photo, but you can see the seed down right here. That's the one done by Beth Johnson. And then this one was inspired by Michael G. LaFosse, and he's the one who makes the paper that made the squirrel. So in this one, we're able to tell the story of the importance of squirrels in gathering and sticking acorns in the ground, which many of them they forget, just like a lot of us do with our car keys, and they end up sprouting new oak trees. So that's kind of a cool one. And this little acorn itself is one of the few pieces in the show that's also done with more than one piece of paper. So this was done with 2 pieces, and that's the one that's done by Beth Johnson from Ann Arbor. This is Botanical Piece 2, sponsored by Doug Grant, another member of the Wawasee Club that visits us a lot, and also Blooming Stars on the right over here, sponsored by Doug and Sharon. Thank you, Doug, for your support of this. These are really cool pieces. They're also fabricated aluminum. They are mounted to these bases, and this was a great one. Eric Amp wheeled 2 of these all the way around the promenade when we were doing the install. And even though they're aluminum, they're kind of unwieldy, they're kind of heavy. Eric got his workout on this one. I was busy hiding somewhere, I'm sure. Didn't have to wheel these around. Each of these 2 painted, and I encourage you to look closely at the signage when you visit these and actually go take a look, because there's some things that you can on Botanical Piece. They're just really, really cool pieces. Conversation Piece, sponsored by Don and Sydney Walter. This was one that had a story about when, as a little kid, they used rock, paper, scissors, to settle a lot of things, who would get to ride in the front seat, things like that. And I'm sure many of you have those similar stories. So that was how this was inspired. This one's got a stone and a pair of scissors that Kevin actually sculpted and then cast. And I love it that he says the paper wins, because the paper folded itself into a crane and stayed just above the reach of the scissors. So that's Conversation Piece. And you'll notice a lot of these with their themes, right? And the theme of Wellfield this year, it is the Year of Peace at Wellfield Botanic Gardens. We knew that we'd have these pieces to sort of support that theme, and we've enjoyed the sentiment that's come from that. And lastly, around in this preview is Hero's Horse. So this is the Pegasus that Robert Lang had folded and inspired this origami piece. This was a really great mock-up that Kevin made for us that actually ends up looking very much like this when it's in place in the garden right now. Are you familiar with the Greek mythology of the Pegasus, that where the Pegasus scratches its hoof? What, does anybody know what happens? Don't all speak at once. All right, I'll admit I didn't know either before I had this exhibit, but where the Pegasus scratches its hoof, fresh water spring comes out of the ground. And this was one when Kevin and Jennifer visited in 2019. They saw this bronze plaque on the ground, and many of you familiar with Wellfield know that this garden, the spring garden, was a gift from our DCO for his wife Patricia, and he saw spring garden and just knew that this was the right place for Hero's Horse because of the Pegasus and that mythology. And then we thought that the fact that the name of the piece is Hero's Horse was very fitting of our DCO. And of course, this was scheduled in place before Art had passed away, but I would tend to think that Art would appreciate the symbolism in this piece, both from the spring garden aspect, as well as from the fact that Art's been a real hero in this community. So that is the end of this preview. Most importantly, I want to thank all of the sponsors. Many of you were here today, but I hope you can get out into the garden to see these pieces, to read the interpretive signs, to listen to the audio tours, and think about how this collaboration came to be. I love this exhibit in that you've got people who are artists in so different ways, putting their talents together to create something even bigger, and then partnering with the foundation, partnering with our sponsors, with Wellfield to make this something that can be really great for our community. I'm really proud of it. I'm really excited that it's here. I hope you can all get out there. It'll look great throughout the seasons and into the fall. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has about the exhibit. And I saw that there was one Is there a chat in there, Aaron? Oh, there it is. Oh, Anthony Hunt asked, did you say, are there linked videos to the folding steps to each of these origami pieces? No, we don't have all of those, although that's a great idea. There are a couple of them that are fairly easy to find. And I've not looked for some of the more complicated pieces like the hero's horse or the peace crane. I'm not sure that I'd be able, and I have a feeling there's probably a little bit of, what's that phrase? They want to keep that process to themselves, but maybe they'd share it. I'm not sure. So good question, Anthony. Thank you. Any other questions from the house? Aaron. 2 questions. Perfect. So a 2-part question from Aaron. Thank you. One is, what happens to these pieces after October 17th? And the answer to that is the boxes will return. They will do some cleaning of the pieces, touch-ups where needed. They will put them all back into a trailer that was, by the way, manufactured right here in Elkhart, Indiana. And the way that these fit into this box, if there are any engineering minds in here and you want to see something quite amazing, and Eric can attest to this, the fact that all of these pieces were in a small, how big is that trailer, Eric? It's maybe a 20-foot box trailer. And it is just incredible the organization that they do to fit all of these pieces in there, including the ponies, and none of this folds up, obviously. It just goes in there. So they will come back, they will clean them, they will prep them, and then they will go on to the next garden around the country that might have them. And Aaron's second question was, are they for sale? I really appreciate that question, because yes, they are for sale. And your purchase of any of these pieces from the garden also results in a fantastic commission coming back to Wealth. So we're excited that we have a commitment for one of those purchases right now. But if you're interested, and they're not the pieces from the show, they'll actually recast new pieces and they will ship them to you. We also have small pieces inspired by the large pieces that are cast by Kevin and Jennifer that are available for sale in the gift shop, which you go right through on your way out of the garden after you got next. And they're super cool. I'm just still trying to figure out which one Jamie and I are going to buy. They're really cool, and they just look awesome. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Yes. Actually, that is a fantastic question. And Brian's question was, how long does it take to cast these pieces? And I'm going to give a quote right here from Kevin Box. He talks about this process. Stand by here. I just can't say it better than what. Where is it? Not finding it here. Let's put it this way. It is about a 39-step process, simple 39-step process that takes weeks to do. So a lot of the process comes in the sculpting of the original clay model that goes into the lost wax casting, but preparation of that mold is extremely labor intensive and time intensive. So it is a process that can take, for one of these pieces from start to finish, about 1.5 years. Is something that Kevin had mentioned. Yeah, Kevin had mentioned. Yes, Susan. These are awesome questions that I am going to have to go learn the answer to that one, Susan. So Susan's question was, what type of paper do they use? Big and heavy. Those are not scientific. And that's a great question. I'm going to find that out. I think it varies depending on the piece. And for instance, the Michael G. LaFosse uses his own, he literally creates his own paper. But you might even be asking what types of raw fiber go into that paper? And I don't know the answer to that, but I will investigate that, and the next audience will have the benefit of knowing. We do. So Susan's second question was, do you have things for sale? We have not only little kits, we sell some paper, and we also have a bunch of cool books. And a couple of them are actually from the artist. So I think Michael G. LaFosse, he has a paper origami book in there, and it's a really great one. There's some for kids, some for adults. Any other questions? Oh, thank you. So Anthony asks again, is this a harbinger to other artists exhibiting in the gardens? Yes. So the answer is yes. And right now, our Arts and Exhibitions Committee, which is led by former board member Martha Peterson, is with their committee looking at other exhibits that might come to Wellfield. So sculptures are great. There are a bunch out there. We've looked at quite a few. Some of you have probably been to gardens and maybe seen Chihuly plants. Don't get too excited unless we can collectively pool a nice round number somewhere between $900,000 and $1.1 million is the rental for those pieces. That does not include installation, 24-hour security, and things like that. So we've got a ways to go. So this was right in our wheelhouse. So it'll be somewhere along this line. And we have seen an increase in visitation already this spring, obviously up from last year. But believe it or not, last year was not terrible at Wellfield. A lot of folks trying to find a safe place to be were actually out in the garden. I saw another hand. Tom, do you have a question? Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Tom, thanks a lot for that compliment. And it's my pleasure every day to work at this garden. It's a fantastic place, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. I felt extremely welcomed in Elkhart, and I know that's not an easy thing sometimes to do. I've been told that, and so I feel at least those people talking to my face have said that. And also to your comment of Rotary, making sure that we get Rotary credit for this place. I have to tell you, it may not come so much directly from this exhibit, but I can tell you that not a day goes by that I don't somehow mention to someone where it comes up about how cool this space is, and it would not have been what it was without this club. I mean, this club, and when I go to trainings for Rotary, it's really hard not to have my Wellfield director hat on, but I'm always so proud to talk about how this club created the place that I work at. And it's a really easy introduction. You know, when I say I'm the director at Wellfield Botanic Gardens, a lot of them have heard of it, at least in our district, I've understood. And so that's my great opportunity to talk to them about it. But it's such a terrific story. And when I talk about the amount of capital that was raised, not for construction initially, but just for the master planning, the fact that this place has a master plan that the board and the staff have been very diligent over the years is amazing. It really is incredible that we've stuck to that. And any changes that have happened have been, and I can attest to this myself, and I know you can too, Tom, as having been chair. We've got several chairs in here, Chuck and yourself and Stu. It's an amazing place, and the thoughtfulness that's gone into it, it just makes it all the more special to be a part of it. So thank you for that. We're over on time. My final thought this week is show your face in the community, continue to be safe, show your face and make your face visible as you make our community a better place. Remember, next week we're off, back on the 7th of June at Wellfield. We'll send you some reminders, but thanks everybody for the attendance today and for your attention. Happy to answer other questions. Rotary's adjourned.